In glass towers from New York to Riyadh, they laughed. Donald Trump waved off the name Burkina Faso in a meeting, chuckling, "What even is that? A country or a brand of bottled water?" Putin smirked when a Russian diplomat mentioned Ibrahim Traoré's new development plan. "Idealism is not policy," he said coldly. And in oil-drenched halls of the Gulf, sheikhs with gold watches and marble thrones scoffed. "That little captain thinks he can build an empire from red dirt and broken roads?" They all laughed, until they didn't. Burkina Faso was alone. No loans, no investments, no partnerships. Ibrahim Traoré stood before his people and said, "They will not help us, so we will help ourselves." He nationalized the gold mines. He canceled every colonial-era license. He banned foreign ownership of land. He turned to the sun, launching the Great Solar Belt, a vast energy project across the Sahel. Children once without light now studied under solar lamps. Communities farmed their own food, stored in refrigerated solar warehouses. New railways carved paths through the bush, connecting villages to new trade hubs. And all of it, every rail, every crop, was Burkinabe built. By 2030, Burkina Faso no longer imported grain, it exported. Its energy grid powered not just its own towns, but parts of Mali, Niger, and Ghana. Its national currency, backed by rare earth minerals and lithium, replaced the CFA franc. Young engineers from the diaspora returned. African countries sent delegations to learn from the Traoré model, and quietly, the world began to shift. By 2035, the tables turned. American companies tried to buy back into the gold sector. Traoré laughed. "We don't sell what's already ours." Saudi princes flew in under fake names, requesting private meetings. "We have sand too," they said, hinting at solar partnerships. Traoré shook his head. "But do you have sovereignty?" Even China, once dismissive, proposed a joint rail project. Traoré replied, "We lay our own tracks now." Ouagadougou, once dusty and forgotten. Now, a futuristic capital with glass towers of red clay and solar gold. The African Union moved its headquarters there. A United Nations satellite office opened in the city. Young leaders from every continent came to study at the Ibrahim Traoré School of Strategic Sovereignty. Trump, older and faded, requested a visit. His request was delayed. Putin sent a gift, Burkinabe chocolate, which didn't exist before Traoré funded the cocoa revolution. The Gulf sheikhs offered oil deals. But Traoré had already announced a new policy. No deals with those who mocked us in our hunger. In 2040, Burkina Faso became the wealthiest country per capita. Its GDP surpassed that of France. Its literacy rate hit 99%. It held the first debt-free global summit in African history. And Traoré, now hailed as the architect of African sovereignty, stood before the world and said, "They laughed when we had nothing. We built anyway, and now they fly across oceans, not to save us, but to be saved." The world was watching, and this time, no one was laughing. Burkinabe engineers unveiled the first 100% African-designed smartphone, running on open-source software built in Ouagadougou. The phone, called Zaka, meaning root, and more, outsold Western brands in African markets. Soon came electric buses, smart irrigation drones, and a quantum research institute funded entirely by the Pan-African Sovereignty Fund. Film festivals in Ouagadougou replaced Kin for African filmmakers. Fashion from Bobo Delasso graced runways in Paris. Music once underground in Ouaga now opened the Olympics. Burkina Faso wasn't just rising in numbers. It was rising in spirit. France's president, humbled, walked barefoot to the memorial of colonization in Kédougou. "We were wrong," he said in front of cameras. The IMF and World Bank offered zero-interest partnerships. Traoré smiled and responded, "We are our own bank now." Traoré, still young but tired from 2 decades of service, announced his retirement. Africa does not need kings. It needs builders. He handed over power to a young woman from the countryside. a former mechanic turned minister. The torch was passed. The vision lived on. And the world finally understood. Burkina Faso had not just risen. It had led. The turning point came when Traoré restructured the national gold industry. Instead of selling raw materials, Burkina Faso built refineries and created the national treasury of gold. The refined gold was used to mint a sovereign currency and back infrastructure bonds that sold out across Africa. Jobs surged. Smuggling dropped. Schools were built with gold-backed grants. The world investors, once mockers, now stood outside embassies begging for a share. You laughed when we had dirt, Traoré said. But even the earth is sacred when it belongs to its people. While others chased Western approval, Burkinabe geologists quietly discovered vast oil reserves beneath the Volta Basin. Rather than sell rights to multinationals, Traoré created the Burkina Faso Energy Cooperative. Refineries were built. Engineers trained at home and abroad. The oil didn't leave the country as crude. It was exported as finished products, fuel, plastics, and synthetic fabrics. For the first time, West Africa exported not just resources, but value. With wealth from gold and oil, Burkina Faso launched the Golden Energy Union, an alliance of Sahel nations trading in a new gold-oil-backed currency. The currency was called Sanko, a tribute to the Sankofa bird, a symbol of returning to one's roots to move forward. France called it dangerous. Wall Street called it disruptive. Africa called it freedom. As Western economies stumbled under inflation and division, Burkina Faso's reserves grew. Gold-backed schools and hospitals replaced foreign aid. African students no longer migrated to Europe. They came to Ouagadougou. Nations once labeled Third World were now first-choice partners. And as global powers turned to war and instability, Traoré simply looked inward and said, "Let them shrink in noise. We will grow in silence." Decades after the mockery, Ibrahim Traoré stood on a global stage in Johannesburg. The world's cameras were aimed at him. Children waved gold-foiled Burkinabe flags. Oil-funded satellites streamed the event across Earth. He looked into the lens and said, "They laughed. Now they applaud. Not because we begged, but because we believed." The crowd erupted. And this time, it was Burkina Faso that laughed, joyfully, victoriously, forever. With Burkina Faso's leadership, the African Union voted to create the African Sovereignty Pact, a unified platform that blocked exploitative trade and secured shared natural resources. For the first time, no foreign military base remained on African soil. It was Burkina Faso's diplomats who drafted the resolution. Burkina Faso established the Guardians of the Sahel, an elite climate and innovation corps composed of scientists, engineers, and educators. Their mission: protect the land, preserve the culture, and push Africa to the technological frontier. Every year, millions visited the Ibrahim Traoré Museum of Sovereignty. Students came on pilgrimage. Leaders arrived seeking counsel. Revolutionaries found blueprints. And all of them walked past a single plaque at the entrance that read, "They laughed." But they did not know our silence was strategy. As Burkina Faso launched its first satellite into orbit, schools paused to watch. Traoré, now a quiet elder, watched with tears. A child beside him whispered, "Is this the end?" He smiled. "No, my child. This is just the beginning." The screen faded to gold, and across the world, the echo of one story remained. Burkina Faso, once ignored, had risen beyond the clouds. By 2050, Burkina Faso was not just the richest country in Africa, it was the richest in the world. Its cities were green, smart, and humming with clean energy. Families from Europe, Asia, and America booked year-long stays in solar cities like Solaville and Neobobo. The air was cleaner, the streets safer, and the schools taught not colonial history, but the story of reclamation. Global celebrities, tired of superficial fame, sought wisdom and retreat in the deserts of the Sahel. They came to see the land that defied an empire and built its own. The new Global Peace Forum was permanently moved to Ouagadougou. The Ibrahim Traoré Peace Dome hosted annual negotiations, where nations in conflict came to talk, because it was neutral, fair, and truly sovereign. Immigration lines wrapped around embassies. Passports bore gold foil visa stamps shaped like baobab trees. And every child born in Burkina Faso received a welcome message from the president. You were born in the heart of humanity. From gold to oil, from sun to satellites, Burkina Faso became more than a country. It became a symbol. In every classroom around the world, history books close with a quote from Ibrahim Traoré. Never let the world define your worth. Build it with your hands. Guard it with your heart. And so, the nation once mocked, now lit the world, not just with power, but with purpose. And still, they fly across oceans. Not just to shake his hand, but to say thank you.